Figure it out.
Hello, this is Adam Koralik from Figured Out Productions. The following video is a video of some kind, and I hope you enjoy it.
Hey guys, it's Adam here, and today I want to address something that's pretty obvious. Before we do that, though, if you guys could do me a favor and like this video, comment down below, subscribe if you've never done that before, as well as check out all the social media stuff in the description. For pretty obvious reasons, you might actually need it in the event something goes wrong on the channel again. But I've got Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Discord, Patreon, of course, that one has nothing to do with this, but I also appreciate the support over there. Spreadshirt, and it's just merch, and my travel channel, which also came in use here. So let's talk about what happened. No doubt a lot of you saw that my channel suddenly was hacked. And if you missed that, yeah, that was a crazy thing. On January 11th, my channel was hijacked, is the official term, by something called like MicroStrategy US. So I thought I would talk about this because I obviously have the channel back. We're here. And I know that a lot of people are familiar with this concept of the hack, which is that this even happened to like Linus Tech Tips. Like no channel is necessarily immune to this. I didn't expect it to happen to me kind of out of nowhere, but obviously that's the whole point. It can happen to anybody. So this is a little bit of a warning to you out there. And we'll just talk about it. So let me tell my story as it is. On January 11th, 2024, I'm not going to disclose times as per a discussion with people at Google. There's certain information that's best not to put out there. But in this case, during that day, I was just sitting here watching a movie. So I've got a 2-monitor setup here in my office, which is where I'm obviously filming this. My computer was running on the right monitor. The left monitor, I was running, like an Xbox, and I was playing a Blu-ray. Like nothing special. On the right, I literally was doing nothing. Like just the computer was on, but that was the extent of it. It was on just in case I needed to check my email or something like that, but like nothing, I wasn't doing anything. And I got a notification on my phone. Now, my phone, naturally, contrary to popular belief, because there was a bunch of people saying I didn't have this, it has two-factor authentication associated with my Google account, which is, logical. By the way, fun fact, for anybody who put out there that I don't know what two-factor authentication is or I should have used it, it isn't a requirement to have that if you're part of the YouTube partnership program, which I have been a member of for like a decade. So yeah, I've got two-factor authentication. It meant nothing. So basically what happens is I get a notification on my phone telling me that someone has logged into my account from a remote device, and then my phone immediately kicked me off of the device. So I have a Pixel, Google Pixel. So when you have a Google Pixel, Google accounts are pretty integrated, logically so. So suddenly my phone was almost a battery. Like, it didn't do much else. Like, I could use certain third-party apps, of course, but a lot of stuff was linked to that. So I was like, what is going on? And so then I look over at the browser, which I'm still logged into on my computer, or so I thought. It just appeared that way. The second I tried to click anything, I was just thrust out of the out of Google back to like the sign-in page. Now, I did go ahead and sign in for a split second, and I was back in the account for like a moment, and then I was kicked right back out. And keep in mind, this was not from clicking on some random PDF. I know people were talking about that. This was not somebody sending me a spam message that I opened up or anything like that. I know people are talking about the idea of tokens, which we'll get back to. But I wasn't doing anything. Everything was situation normal, and then suddenly, like that, everything goes. Now, as for two-factor authentication, it did not exactly do its job. What ended up happening is I received a text from Google after I was kicked out of everything, being like, here's your security code. And I'm like, I didn't request this. And then when I went to a fresh tab, and I opened up, google.com and attempted to log in. I tried to log into the account, and then it asked me for a verification code. My phone sent it to me. But then when I put that code in, it did not function, and I couldn't get into the account. And as I was trying to attempt to get into the account, I was getting emails on my recovery email telling me my Google password had been changed. And then I was being told, I couldn't recover from that anymore, and that all my recovery methods were just suddenly being all changed. Like now it was using one of these, which I just bought after this, a YubiKey. These are for two-factor authentication that require actual hardware to verify. Now, in my ignorance, I did not actually have one of these, which I apparently really should, which I now do. And I was just it was a lot going on. You know, suddenly I realized, like, oh my God, I've actually been kicked out of my Google account completely for no rhyme or reason. Like I said, I'm very familiar with the whole token concept, in which someone sends you a phishing link of some kind and it basically steals a cookie from your browser, and the recipient then can just kind of cheat the system into thinking that you're still logged in without having to do another login check. I'm aware of the concept. And likely something to that extent must have happened, but the simple truth is I didn't do anything to facilitate that. So I'm skipping ahead a little bit here, but basically, when Google conducted an investigation of my channel and my situation, they actually were inconclusive. They couldn't really figure out what had happened. They did admit that the channel was hijacked. They just didn't know how or why. Now, why is kind of obvious in the sense that if you saw this misfortunate situation play out, what you saw was that the channel was taken over, everything was rebranded, and they took down all my videos and replaced it with a single live stream talking about crypto. Okay, now that is kind of bog standard, use a British term here, for what happens in these situations where it's just, you know, these scammers basically take over the channel. They're really just kind of using it as a platform because they're essentially just using your subscriber base to try and advertise spam. Now the video itself, well, of course, spam is not actually dangerous, but it does contain a bunch of links that lead you to other pages that contain a ton of problems. Now, logically so, a bunch of people saw this, had no idea what it was, or they thought I had sold out to crypto or whatever craziness. So there was a lot of people that mass unsubbed over the course of the day, which I get. Unfortunately, a lot of people have returned, not all, but a good little chunk anyway. So what ends up happening in my timeline of events is, as soon as this is a realization that this is happening and I'm actually logged out of the account, I don't really know what to do. So I immediately try to find a phone number for Google, which, as you can imagine, is an extreme pain. So I actually called them 4 times over the course of the day. And I was hung up on all 4 times, never speaking to a human being. And most of the average wait time was 2 hours. So I'm just pacing around my place in 2-hour intervals, only to always be hung up on. To say the least, that was frustrating. So the only thing I could do at that point is, I knew one person that had gone through this, and they said that what you have to talk to is a Twitter account called Team YouTube. Now, I messaged them over Twitter, which you can't DM them because they're a closed account. So I basically just tweeted at them being like, yo, here's my situation. Can you help me? And to their credit, they did respond, not super quickly, but like within reason, effectively, like a half hour. And then it was kind of a very slow back and forth, in which I was in their DMs for a little bit, and they were like asking for some details, and they're like, we'll kick this up and blah, blah, blah. Now, as you can imagine, while that was somewhat encouraging, it wasn't actually like a super expedient process. Meanwhile, I'm sitting here being like, my livelihood is this channel, like what do I do here? Like, what if this is gone? Like, I had no idea how to handle this. So again, I tweeted about it, and to all of your credit, there was a lot of people on Twitter that were, X, whatever you want to call it now, who were very helpful, and they were constantly tagging Team YouTube to be like, yo, dude, you got to help this guy. He's been a YouTuber for a long time. We don't want to see his channel go down, whatever. And so, yeah, I appreciate everybody who took the time to do that. And that's why I was plugging social media so much at the beginning, because, yeah, that can happen to anybody. And so if you want to keep track of people and help them out in those kind of situations, that's what you got to do. Now, I have to thank a lot of you, because not only did I get a million notifications from people being like, yo, your channel's hacked, yo, your channel's hacked, because everybody's figured that one out as soon as that live stream went up. There was a good, hour or so after the hack where I had no control of the channel, but I could go to it just as a public page and see that it still existed in its normal form. It wasn't until they changed everything up and went live with this thing that I couldn't do anything about it. But anyway, so I'm still just kind of at my wit's end, kind of pulling my hair out here. Like, I don't know how to solve this. And I won't name names for obvious privacy reasons, but there was an employee at Google who reached out to me specifically through a social media outlet, and all I'll say is it was credible, who was very willing to help me, even though they were not part of the YouTube team, and I won't divulge what team they were on. They were like, look, I'm going to kick this up a notch here, because basically the way YouTube prioritizes these kind of hijackings, or Google hijacks or prioritizes these hijackings, they essentially have a 3-tier system. The third tier is what I started at, which is just, hey, you're a guy and your channel went down, we'll get to it when we get to it. Highest priority is if it's like something super important, like, the White House's official YouTube channel got taken over or something, like something like that. The second tier is where your upper echelon YouTubers go, and I don't belong there, but he got me kicked into that area, which did help facilitate this process forward. And so I'm very, very grateful to that situation. So I ended up going back and forth eventually with Google's basically internal investigation team. And I'm not going to go through all the details here, but basically they believed me because they saw like the entire record of events that made no sense. They understood that there's no reason I personally would have done all that and then destroyed my own channel to sell out for crypto. Like, they understood that. So it was obvious what had happened. So in that situation, once they were like on top of it, they locked the account completely, which actually forced out the hijacker totally. So they didn't have access to the account either. Then they sent me like a recovery process, in which I was granted access back to the account and, given the option to try and resecure it as much as I possibly could. Now, to their credit, at that point, they added a bunch of additional like temporary security measures. So even if the guy was still like active, he couldn't really do anything. There was like too much extra steps on top of it. You can think of it as like multi-form authentication, but only very temporarily. So like, it was suspicious about if I wasn't actually like in the right city type of level of stuff, but anyway, it doesn't matter. So I had the account back, but as you can tell, there was a lot of damage. Like, they fortunately did not delete anything. All they did was privatize every single video on the channel and then change my name on the channel, change the artwork, all that stuff. What I was hoping was that Google would be able to just roll the channel back to like January 10th status and just undo everything. But they basically, I don't know if they can do that, but whenever I asked about it, they kind of shied away from it as if either they can't or they won't. So the process then became a manual matter of going into the videos and like manually unlocking every single one that's meant to be public, which did cause some problems because in the early days of YouTube, there were definitely videos that I just had as unlisted or private because I wasn't trying to do it full time, etc. And those went public too, which, because they had never been public, were suddenly sent out to subscribers. So people were like totally confused why I was talking about just getting a Patreon from a video that was like 10 years old. Anyway, so some of those bugs obviously worked out. The last thing that was recovered though was the name, like to the point where I had to go back and forth with Google's security team because YouTube has a feature obviously where you can change the name of the channel. And if you notice, my channel has a verification check mark. Now, the verification check mark actually has a check on it, not the literal check, but like a security check, which is you can't change the name of the channel unless you go through that process. And even then, it's like supposed to be a 2-day turnaround. It can be sometimes, and it's only allowed to be done like once every 14 days, something like that. And so it was a little shocking they had been able to change that, and I could not revert it. They tried to show me how to do this on the YouTube app, the standard YouTube app, and I would point out, like, on the standard YouTube app, the option is grayed out entirely. I can't do anything. On YouTube Studio's app, I can actually change the name, save it, and nothing would ever take effect. And on the PC, if you tried to do that, it wouldn't allow the option. It would say, like, you can not change it. I couldn't change it from Adam Koralik because that's what it would keep saying the name of the channel was, even though it wasn't the name of the channel. And then I could switch it to, like, Adam Koralik space, and then I would try to confirm it. It would save it, and then nothing would change. It would still say media, whatever that stupid thing, Micro Center, whatever it was, that stupid thing. MicroStrategies US, whatever. So I couldn't figure out how to solve that, and Google actually couldn't figure it out either for a little while because they're like, it shouldn't display like that. And then they did figure it out. They're like, so if you look there's a certain setting that's in Google's, in YouTube specifically, where your channel name actually can be represented in different languages. So if you, for example, this is, it doesn't matter. Like if I said, like, I'm the coffee channel, like it's two series of English words, or three, the coffee channel. Okay. they have an option in there where if you want your channel to be more international, you can actually use Google Translate, sort of, but you can tell it to manually translate it to another language. So if it were, say, to display in French, it would say, like, you know, I don't know, the cafe shop or whatever, you know, sorry for my French. But it would say something to that effect. These people who had hacked into the channel had used every language to just translate Adam Koralik to MicroStrategy US. Now, that's honestly kind of smart. I hadn't thought of that at all. So they basically told me to manually delete every single translation. And as soon as I did that, the name of the channel reverted, and which is why the verification checkmark stuck. So one thing I definitely think was at play here was that my channel was targeted not for me specifically or the following exactly. It was targeted because of its verification checkmark, because if it has that, it looks more authentic, which is the whole point. So that is to say, everything is kind of back up and running now. You know, the bugs seem to be worked out. There's a couple of lingering issues that I'm kind of told are non-issues, but they're like remnants. Like that stream they did is still sitting there, although I've been told not to touch it per Google investigation and etc. But all I'm really just trying to say here is, like, I want to warn you about this. This could happen to anybody. Like I said, I didn't do anything. I didn't click on any weird phishing links. I did not just have no two-factor authentication for fun, which, again, you can't even do if you're a YouTube partner. It's not even allowed. So, yeah, I would say take as many precautions as you can, like add more. You know, I added other means. Like I said, this is also one of them, is adding a physical key that is required in order to unlock the account. So, you know, take that very seriously. But I also just want to thank Google in particular, because they were, once they were aware of the situation, they were relatively cooperative and swift about fixing it. So I give them props for that. And I don't chastise them specifically for this issue, but it's unknown what the issue was, like why this happened at all. Unfortunately, it's remained that way. And if Google has not actually gotten back to me about that, and I don't know if they're going to, because it seems like they closed the ticket since it's essentially resolved. So yeah, I guess just word of warning. And it also should be a reminder of what I'm always talking about with digital media. Like, I give you the free content. I don't charge anybody for YouTube. I mean, granted, you know, if you get Patreon access, that's just supporting the channel. But either way, I don't charge you specifically to watch my content. And it was all taken down like that. And that should be a reminder of anything that can happen in the digital ecosystem. Is you enjoy that content, but it's not yours. You know, you have access to it as long as the internet allows it, for any number of reasons. Now, for those who are concerned or curious, my videos are archived on a hard drive. Like, I do keep them in case of something like this, which fortunately is not necessary. Though I have to admit, and I'm just going to be honest, guys, had the channel been destroyed, like, completely, I think that would have been the end. Like, I think I wouldn't have had the energy to come back from that. So, fortunately, that is not the case. And fortunately, I hope more and more of you that unsubscribe because of that, which I don't blame you for, have recognized that everything's kind of back to normal now. And I hope you'll stay tuned and watch more videos. So, yeah, I just wanted to comment on all this and tell you what went down from my perspective. And, yeah, so thank you guys, as always, for watching. I appreciate the support. So, again, please do me a favor, like this video. Comment down below, subscribe if you've never done that before, and if you did before, now you're back. Either way, so yeah, appreciate that. Obviously, for social media stuff, more important than ever, because like tons of you were reaching out through like Instagram, Facebook, you know, all that, Discord, a lot. I appreciate that. It was kind of an eye-opening thing, because I also got a ton of comments from people being like, look, man, I haven't watched you in like 6-7 years, but the idea of your channel just being gone, I couldn't stand that. So I had to like tell you, now I'm back. Like, once the channel started running, people were like, man, I should go back and watch more of these videos. I missed it. So appreciate those people as well. Anyway, yeah, like, comment, subscribe, check all the social media stuff in the description: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Discord, Patreon, Spreadshirt, Travel Channel. Appreciate that. A lot of you went over to the Travel Channel actually looking for me too, which I do appreciate that. But yes, anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all later. For real, I actually will this time. We won't have any problems, hopefully.